Happy Thursday, students. I wanted to make this little video to cover what I wanted to cover in class today on our romantic PowerPoint, our romantic presentation. So before I do that, I want to make sure that everybody obviously read the announcement if you're watching this video, but I'm extending the deadline for your reading response from Thursday to Sunday just because of the weather, and I just want to make sure everybody has the ability to submit the work without worry about loss of electricity, loss of power. So both your reading response from this week, what are we in, week 3, and also your first presentation check-in, which is your topic and brainstorming worksheet. They're both due Sunday by midnight, Sunday, September 3rd. So for class today, real quick on the poems, we were to cover 2 other Shelley poems and 2 Wordsworth poems. We had the Skylark to Wordsworth, as well as 2 Keats selections on first looking into Chapman's Homer and Ode on a Grecian Urn. So for the 2 Keats poems, for the Skylark, that's a very famous poem. You want to go and really read and watch how he is looking at the using words and language to express the joy, the motion, just that pure joy that birds feel when they're unencumbered by gravity and they're flying through the air. And it's a very beautiful, happy, joyful poem, where in Wordsworth is looking at nature as pleasurable for pleasure's sake. The bird seems to feel pleasure for pleasure's sake. So think about that language, the very musical feel to it when you're reading through it. Now, for Wordsworth, what you want to think about is it feels like it's an elegy, which is a poem marking the passing of somebody or something. And what it seems to be is that Shelley is mourning the passing of Wordsworth's earlier romantic sensibility, and Wordsworth has become very conventional and part of the establishment, for lack of a better word. So Wordsworth seems to be almost mocking Wordsworth at this point. I mean, Shelley seems to almost be mocking Wordsworth at this point. So think about that as you read this Wordsworth poem, which feels to be an elegy or an ode. For the Keats poem, the first one, on first looking into Chapman's Homer, this is a very classic second-generation romantic poem in that it feels very exotic, not unlike Ozymandias, although not as angry as Ozymandias felt, or stern. But he feels like a traveler in a strange land. He was inspired by reading George Chapman, an Elizabethan playwright's translation of Homer. So there's a lot of allusions to Greek imagery and the exotic. So pay attention to that when you're reading through that Keats poem. Then the second, Ode on a Grecian Urn, he is again back in this idea of the classic imagery, exploring these relationships of soul and the eternity in nature and art. So very philosophical, highly philosophical. Keats wrote a series of odes. Remember, an ode is a lyric poem that's praising an individual, an idea, or an event. So Keats was exploring these philosophical ideas and using classical imagery as a means of exploration. All right, now on to our romantic project. So let me go ahead and click into our romantic period. So here's what we're going to do. Everything, remember, you need for this romantic period presentation is within this folder. It's the top thing you're going to find. So you're going to click into that. Here's the assignment sheet. I gave you a physical copy. Here is the sample presentation. I'm going to go over this in a second with you. Now, here are all these various topics that you want to be thinking about. This worksheet is due on Sunday, September 3rd. And you submit it. I don't have a submission. I'm going to do a submission link right here underneath this worksheet. So when you watch this video, when you go in real life, it'll be underneath this. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to click on that worksheet and pull it over in our window here. So you are going to give me your general topic idea. What do you know about this? You're going to want to go and do a little bit of reading about this topic, or maybe you have some ideas if you're going to talk about clothes or music or newspapers or the militia. What do you want to know more about in this? What do you want to explore? What interests you? Why are you interested in this topic? And then you're going to have to give me one source that you found, and then I want something that you learned from, something very specific that you learned from that source. All right, so now on to your sources. Right now, these blogs are going to be your best way of getting information. Jane Austen's World blog. Click on that. You can click on that link and it'll take you to the blog. You can use this. Let me put my glasses on so I can see. This particular blog is interesting in that it gives you the ability to search for topics right here. Okay, so you could search for something like carriages, and you're going to get a whole bunch of different hits, just like you would if you were searching through Google. So this is sort of like a mini specific Google for articles contained within this Jane Austen's World. So this is one of the best resources. Then we've got several others. So for example, Regency History. Again, this is a searchable blog. It also has an index of people. It's got an index of places. So if you want, it's got popular posts. Look, this is on transportation. Here's dancing. So you've got all kinds of ways of searching within this blog. This is a very useful blog. You want to look at that as well. Then, I have a whole list of them. So once you've looked through, you've clicked through, you want to spend some time. Down here I have some links to some articles, and I have in red, highlighted in red, generally the topic of the article. And so you can click through and read those articles. So once you found a single source, then you, hey y'all, I'm back. Okay, so again, we've got these articles, links to these articles, general topics in red, and articles, and I have so many of them. So click through, spend some time, and have some fun. I really am hoping that what y'all come out of this is that you're going to have a fun time. So let me go back up and remind you. Let me pull this sheet back up. All right, let me pull it back over. Okay, make it big. So again, what's your general topic idea? What do you know about it? Maybe you don't know anything about it. Maybe you want to learn something about it. Why are you interested? So do a little reading, find your source, tell me what you learned from that source. So that the goal is, by Sunday evening, you have a starting place, and that I'm going to start to give you all some time in class starting next week to work on this. All right, so one last thing I want to cover is my sample. Just give you a quick idea. You really want to look at my sample presentation so that you feel good about this, what we're doing with this. So again, I said I was doing traveling in Jane Austen's England. First slide is an overview informational slide. I have some pictures that I pulled, and you see I've given credit wherever credit is due. Here I've given credit for the information. So here's my general overview. Again, I'm specifying inns, horses, carriages, boats, and of course walking, because it's travel. Travel might mean staying overnight in an inn. So then I give a slide to each of those topics. So I talk about walking, how most people walked in the Regency. I have a couple of pictures to sort of illustrate that. Then I go to riding. Who could afford to ride horses? Again, this is important, and Northanger Abbey is filled with travel. And I picked that in particular because there's a lot of movement in Northanger Abbey. So again, here's something a little more specific about buying a horse. That's very Regency. Here's about private carriages, continued about private carriages, more information. Again, my goal and your goal is to educate your class about your topic. So I'm educating y'all about how do people actually get from point A to point B during the Regency time period. They didn't have a car, so how they did it? They walked, they rode horses, they got in carriages. Sometimes they had to stay at an inn for a few hours or even overnight traveling. And sometimes they went on the rivers. There were, obviously rivers, and river travel is another way. So then I go from my general topic to my specific topic within the novel Northanger Abbey. Now, as I said in class, you won't know some of this yet till you start reading the book. You can be working on these general slides. Once you get to the book, you'll start saying, well, how is travel explored in Northanger Abbey? Oh, Catherine goes by carriage from Bath with Mr. and Mrs. Allen. They stay overnight in an inn. How does Jane Austen explore walking? Again, walking around town, walking around the countryside. So very specific to Northanger Abbey. So finally, at the very end, I have a social commentary. What does this mean? What do we learn from this? So you read through my social commentary slide, and then I make a general overview, conclusion about travel and the characters in Northanger Abbey. So please, please, please read through this carefully. All right. I'm going to say goodbye, and I'm really sorry I didn't get to see y'all. I love seeing y'all on Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, but I'll see you on Tuesday. And feel free to email me anytime.